As the late afternoon sun cast its golden hues over the Chicago skyline, Kendall Reese stood at the edge of the plush boardroom, feeling a peculiar sense of calm amidst the impending storm. Brody Vance, newly appointed Chief Financial Officer and bearer of slick charm, reclined in his chair, arrogance practically oozing from his presence. "Kendall, after 18 years, your methods are a relic of the past," he declared, his words hanging in the air like a dissonant note in an otherwise harmonious symphony. "We expect your resignation by tomorrow." The polished glass table reflected Kendall's steady hands as she sat across from Brody, the glittering panorama behind him a stark contrast to the tension inside. For nearly 2 decades as chief financial strategist at Vanguard Solutions, she had fought hard-won battles and ushered financial stability into the company. "I see," Kendall responded, her voice even and unyielding, her eyes never wavering from his. "Thank you for the clarity." Her composed demeanor seemed to momentarily throw Brody off balance, his eyes narrowing slightly, perhaps perplexed by the absence of tears or pleas. Yet, as Kendall gathered her belongings, meticulously collected during years of dedication, she felt a sense of resolute purpose swelling within. She was Kendall Reese, 6 years shy of retirement age, and her legacy at Vanguard Solutions was cemented in systems she had meticulously crafted to steer the company through turbulent financial waters. Brody Vance had joined Vanguard Solutions amid much fanfare, touting a highfalutin resume peppered with prestigious stints and lofty promises of modernized financial practices. His convincing narratives bedazzled the board, who eagerly bought into his revolutionary pitch. But Kendall had detected the faint rumblings of doubt early on. A few too many sweeping generalizations peppered his supposedly impressive track record, and his disregard for stringent financial protocols set alarm bells ringing. 2 weeks earlier, Kendall had found herself seated in the dim office of Morgan Ellis, auditing committee head. Under the hush of secrecy, Morgan had voiced concerns about some unusual patterns cropping up in expense verifications and contract surveillances linked to the new CFO's office. "We're not jumping to conclusions yet, but we need you to investigate quietly," Morgan urged, her voice a blend of uneasiness and hope as she handed over a folder marked with cryptic notes. Kendall, always meticulous, had already perceived aberrations, exorbitant consultancy bills linked to questionable firms, travel expenditures mismatched to corporate itineraries, and contract amendments that appeared post-approval. She was methodical in her efforts, logging each inconsistency with diligent accuracy, an arsenal of evidence waiting to unravel. As Kendall placed her belongings into her car, her thoughts were clear, unfettered by rage. Instead, a steely resolve had taken root. Brody had gravely underestimated her. She was no relic, but the architect of Vanguard Solutions' financial fortifications. She possessed an intimate knowledge of every financial trajectory and digital blueprint, knowledge Brody had blithely discarded. Her modest Lincoln Park bungalow greeted her earlier than usual that evening. A career at Vanguard Solutions had afforded her a comfortable simplicity, a sturdy retirement plan, and a home nearly hers. She could have easily pivoted to new opportunities, leaving Brody Vance to entrench himself in his own web of deceit. But that wasn't Kendall. With a glass of Zinfandel in hand, she settled at her rustic dining table, surrounded by the accumulation of her investigation. Before leaving, she had ensured she was equipped with critical reports, shared with herself through legitimate means, insight extricated from public records, now poised to tell a condemning tale. Her phone buzzed abruptly. A message from Morgan flickered across the screen. The fight was just beginning. Kendall had a legacy to defend, and she was ready for battle with truth and evidence as her steadfast allies. The evening air was heavy with tension, a calm before the storm. Kendall Reese was already deep in thought when her phone buzzed loudly against the wooden table. It was a message from Morgan Ellis, urging her to get in touch immediately. With no time to hesitate, she called Morgan back. "Kendall, this whole scenario is just mind-boggling," Morgan began, her voice carrying a sense of disbelief. "I'm still trying to process it." Kendall had anticipated this, explaining, "Brody Vance's been tightening the noose around my position from day one. I just didn't expect it to unfold so soon. Morgan's voice lowered conspiratorially. The timing is quite suspect, especially after our last conversation. Have you come across anything substantial? Kendall hesitated a moment, then said, I'm getting closer. There's something fishy about the contracts with Cascade Advisors. They exist legally, but there's no real-world evidence of services rendered. Morgan sighed, frustration edging her tone. That's troubling, but it's not enough to take action with the board, Morgan acknowledged. Kendall countered with determination, give me a couple of weeks. I might be out of direct access, but I have allies inside who trust me. I know just where to look. After hanging up, Kendall remained at her dining room table, strategizing. She crafted a timeline of Brody's maneuvers since his arrival and linked them to suspicious financial activities. She pinpointed colleagues capable of discreet insight and external sources to substantiate her suspicions. The following morning, Kendall transformed her dining area into a command center. Surrounded by her laptop and stacks of documents, she reached out to old contacts around Chicago's financial sector. By noon, conversations with former associates, now at banks handling Vanguard Solutions' dealings, confirmed her suspicions. While details remained withheld, their hints suggested substantial irregularities in Brody's new financial schemes. A week into her investigation, Kendall found an unexpected ally at her doorstep. Jordan Hale, Vanguard Solutions' IT director, appeared unannounced at 8 p.m., visibly uneasy. Kendall, I should have called, but there's too much at stake if I use company channels, he admitted, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting hidden watchers. Invited inside over coffee, he revealed, since you left, things have been off. Brody's brought aboard a new IT team and altered access protocols. My access is now severely restricted. Alarmed, Kendall inquired, that's highly irregular. What's he hiding? Jordan nodded gravely. Worse, Brody demanded I pull all communications between you and the audit committee from the last 6 months. Officially, I complied, but... Handing her a flash drive from his bag, he added, I felt you needed to see this. Once alone, Kendall reviewed the contents, confirming her fears. Jordan had provided more than just the emails. The drive contained network logs indicating extensive data transfers and authorization loopholes she never sanctioned. Brody's scrambling to cover his tracks was evident. The following day, a personal call shook Kendall further. Her longtime assistant, Sasha Klein, was on the verge of tears. Kendall, they started a smear campaign against you, she cried. Brody's claiming you were under investigation for misconduct before you left. He's saying you manipulated contracts for years and designed systems only you could navigate to obscure earnings. For the first time, anger flared in Kendall's chest. Brody had crossed an unspoken line, tainting her reputation unjustly. What exactly did he allege, Sasha? Kendall probed, her voice steely with controlled rage. He's suggesting restating earnings because of your supposed system backdoors and manipulations, Sasha explained. Brody had strategically launched his attack, sullying Kendall's name before she could unearth his misdeeds. Yet, in doing so, he'd unwittingly provided her with newfound resolve and a crucial tactical error she could leverage in her quest for justice. The morning light seeped through half-closed blinds as Kendall Reese sat at her home office desk, determination fused with the white noise of the city outside. This time, Brody Vance had gone too far, and Kendall knew she had to protect her reputation. She quickly picked up her phone to call Sasha, her confidant and former assistant at Vanguard Solutions. Sasha, she said with urgency, I need you to procure the latest Whitaker agreement, the one Brody renegotiated last month. Sasha's voice, barely above a whisper, revealed the obstacle. The clearance for that is out of my reach now, she admitted. No worries, Kendall assured her, her mind on overdrive. Try the archives. The initial copy should be stored there. By the end of the day, Sasha had delivered exactly what Kendall needed, proof that contract terms had been significantly altered since board approval, diverting millions to suspect consultancy entities likely tied to Brody. Without delay, Kendall forwarded her findings to Morgan Ellis, head of the audit committee. Morgan's response was immediate and clear. Meet me at my home office tonight with all your evidence. Morgan's residence, a blend of charming antiquity and modern efficiency, situated in the heart of Chicago's historic district, reflected her attention to detail. Inside, the warm glow from multiple monitors clashed intriguingly with the spines of antique books surrounding them. The board split over Brody, Morgan explained as they sifted through Kendall's evidence. Some see him as the catalyst Vanguard Solutions needs in this competitive environment, while others are wary but need undeniable proof to confront the CEO's chosen CFO. Kendall leaned forward, pointing at the screen. This isn't just innovation versus tradition. These contract alterations weren't sanctioned by the board. They resulted in an extra $2.7 million in fees to unverified companies. More than suspicious, Morgan agreed, eyebrows furrowed. But we need to connect the dots back to Brody personally. Kendall's fingers tapped purposefully on the keyboard, revealing corporate registration files. Both dubious entities were established 6 months ago through a legal firm that also represents Pinnacle Partners, she pointed out. Morgan's eyes widened. Brody's old employer. Exactly, and the authorized signatory is listed as Haley Vance, Kendall continued, showing another document. Any relation? Morgan queried. His wife, Kendall confirmed, nodding. Though professionally she retains her maiden name. But their marriage announcement from 8 years ago links them conclusively. A heavy silence settled briefly as Morgan considered the magnitude of the revelation. This is heading into serious territory, Kendall, potential fraud, conflicts of interest, Morgan stated, understanding Brody's motive. He needed you out because you would have inevitably flagged these issues during routine checks. But he didn't count on us having you already looking into it, Morgan added, a conspiratorial smile breaking her stern demeanor. For the next few hours, Kendall and Morgan meticulously compiled a comprehensive dossier. A clear pattern emerged. Brody had siphoned Vanguard Solutions' capital to shady entities under the guise of consultancy contracts, an operation costing the company close to $4.5 million in under 3 months. As Kendall drove home that evening, a cautious optimism accompanied her through the city's bustling streets. The evidence was damaging, but internal politics were a tangled web. Brody had allies among board members who had backed his appointment. They weren't likely to concede easily. At 6 the next morning, Kendall's phone buzzed urgently on the nightstand. Sasha's voice sounded tense and hurried. Kendall, something's off. External auditors are combing through all the financial records from your tenure 5 years' worth. Kendall felt a jolt of tension tightening in her gut. Brody was switching to an offensive strategy, likely attempting to unearth or fabricate any past discrepancies to cloud her credibility. Did they mention who initiated this review? Kendall asked, her voice calm despite the turmoil within. Sasha hesitated. Brody claimed it was mandated by the board, but her voice trailed off. But what, Sasha? Kendall pressed, sensing there was more beneath the silence. In the twilight of an October evening, Kendall Reese was a relentless storm of focus. She had just received a message from Sasha, her trusted ally within the corridors of Vanguard Solutions, warning her about the machinations in motion to undermine her. They're still searching for anything to leverage against you, Sasha said, her voice a discreet whisper over the line. We need something solid before this emergency board meeting. Emergency board meeting. Those words signaled that Morgan Ellis had successfully compelled key members to scrutinize the evidence Kendall had gathered. Brody Vance, the CFO, was now frantic, trying to steer the narrative away from his own shady dealings. Thank you for the update, Kendall replied. Be cautious, and don't get yourself into trouble for helping me. With a quiet resolve, Sasha reassured her, we all know you're the one who held this company together. Over the next 2 days, the atmosphere was electric, charged with the tension of a strategic chess match unfolding. Brody, playing his risky hand, convened an unscheduled press conference, cloaked in rhetoric about updating Vanguard Solutions' antiquated financial practices and alluding to unsettling findings related to past mismanagement. While his words danced around her identity, anyone acquainted with the company could decipher the veiled accusations. Kendall watched it all unfold from her intimate workspace, observing the strained confidence behind Brody's facade. The barrage of texts and calls from past colleagues and financial peers painted a picture of collective disbelief and anger at the insinuations broadcasted. Kendall responded with diplomacy, recognizing this wasn't the moment for a public rebuttal. Instead, she honed her efforts on fortifying her case with actionable evidence. An old connection at the Securities and Exchange Commission offered invaluable guidance on what would meet the threshold for actionable financial misconduct under regulatory eyes. Armed with this intelligence, Kendall refined her strategy, meticulously tracing the flow of funds from Vanguard Solutions to the shadowy companies and inextricably back to Brody. The breakthrough was unexpected but painted in vivid detail. As Kendall scrutinized Brody's lavish travel claims, a repetitive theme emerged: weekend escapades to Milwaukee. These indulgent hotel expenses, justified as essential investor meetings, were glaring red flags when juxtaposed with Vanguard Solutions' investor relations calendar, which bore no trace of such events. A dive into social media unveiled a crucial link. Haley Vance, Brody's wife, had unveiled an art gallery in Milwaukee only 3 months back. Opening night photographs showcased Brody at her side on a weekend supposedly devoted to investor gatherings. Digging deeper, Kendall unearthed that the gallery's business filings listed its financier as Cascade Advisors, the very shell entity siphoning off Vanguard Solutions' consulting fees. The revelation was too potent to delay. She swiftly forwarded this damning evidence to Morgan, who responded succinctly: "Emergency board meeting rescheduled. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. As the evening settled, Kendall was greeted by an unexpected knock. Jordan Hale, Vanguard Solutions' general counsel, a man whose allegiances were as shrouded as winter fog, stood on her doorstep. "May I come in, Kendall?" he asked with a formality that suggested his visit bore weight. Her wariness evident, her hand hovered over the door, not yet inviting. Sensing her hesitation, Jordan added, "I'm here under board instructions. They request your presence at tomorrow's meeting." "Why does the board want me there?" "What's changed?" she countered. Jordan, with an air of seriousness, stated, "Serious allegations have surfaced. They require direct testimony from those involved." He extended an official letter to her. "This is not a summons, but I strongly recommend attending." After he left, a quick call to Morgan verified the meeting's legitimacy. "A few board members want your direct account," Morgan disclosed. "Brody will undoubtedly arrive armed to undermine you," Kendall noted. "Then ensure your preparation exceeds his," Morgan advised confidently. The night was Kendall's companion as she meticulously organized her presentation, each piece of evidence a testament to her integrity. Avoiding emotional pleas, she trusted that the data, objective and revealing, was her strongest ally. As dawn crept in, Kendall steeled herself, ready for the confrontation that awaited, determined to protect the truth above all else. The tension in the air was almost palpable as Kendall Reese prepared herself for the most crucial meeting of her career. She chose a sleek navy suit, a garment that would project confidence and professionalism without the hint of ostentation. After meticulously reviewing her notes one last time, she made her way to Vanguard Solutions, where the elevators whisked her to the executive floor she had known intimately for over 15 years. As Kendall navigated the familiar corridors, the glances from her former colleagues ranged from empathetic to speculative, throwing in shades of encouragement. Pausing outside the boardroom doors, Kendall calmed her racing heart. Today, she would stand in the same room with Brody Vance, the man who had attempted to tarnish her professional legacy. But unlike Brody, Kendall wielded a weapon more formidable than deceit, truth. The boardroom hushed as she entered, 14 pairs of eyes locking onto her. 11 board members, Morgan poised at the head, and Brody, who seemed to have aged visibly in just a week's time. "Thank you for joining us, Ms. Reese," greeted Preston Whitaker, the board chairman, his tone measured and formal. "We find ourselves navigating unusual circumstances that demand transparency." Kendall acknowledged him professionally, her gaze settling across from Brody. His attempt at a facade of confidence crumbled under her steady stare. For those not fully briefed, Preston continued, allegations have surfaced regarding financial irregularities under Mr. Vance's oversight. Conversely, it's been implied that these accusations are retaliatory measures by Ms. Reese. With respect, Chairman, Brody interjected, edging forward. Ms. Reese's inclusion here is inappropriate. She's no longer with Vanguard Solutions and has evident motives against. Ms. Reese is present at my insistence, Morgan cut in abruptly. Her voice held authority. As the head of the audit committee, her investigation was commissioned well before her departure. A wave of disbelief rippled across the board members. Clearly, Brody had engineered his own narrative. I would suggest Ms. Reese shares her findings directly, Morgan proposed. Please continue, Ms. Reese, Preston affirmed, leaning back in his chair. Kendall linked her laptop to the projector, systematically unraveling the facts. She revealed manipulated contracts, money trails leading to shadow firms, personal expenditures veiled as business costs. Every slide meticulously reinforced the one before, crafting an undeniable narrative. In conclusion, Kendall stated 30 minutes later, an estimated $8 million has been funneled from Vanguard Solutions to entities connected to Mr. Vance and his affiliates, camouflaged as legitimate expenditures. Silence hung in the air as her presentation concluded, punctuated only by Brody's increasingly ashen face. These accusations are baseless. Brody finally erupted, his voice masked with desperation. This is clearly a vendetta aimed at. Are you denying Haley Vance is your spouse? A board member queried sharply. Or that Cascade advisors supported her venture? Another pressed. Or that you misled Vanguard Solutions regarding fictitious investor meetings? Came a third. Brody's eyes flicked nervously, probing for support and finding none. You're distorting facts without considering legitimate reasons for, he began, only to be cut off. I believe we need no further input, Mr. Vance, Preston declared authoritatively. Please wait outside while the board considers the evidence. This is absurd. You can't be taking her claims over Brody protested, but Preston's firm directive mirrored his composure. Outside, Mr. Vance. You may address this formally through your legal representation. After Brody exited the room, Preston turned to Kendall. Ms. Reese, thank you for your comprehensive presentation. We will now deliberate without you for the moment. Kendall gathered her documents and moved toward the exit. Just as she reached for the handle, Preston's voice cut through the room's tension once more. One last question, Ms. Reese. Would you say your method of collecting evidence was outdated? A genuine smile graced Kendall's lips. I believe thorough is the appropriate term, Chairman Whitaker. Laughter, punctuating the release of tension, echoed softly among the board members. In the hallway, Kendall noticed Brody engaged in a heated discussion with Jordan Hale, illustrating the unfolding drama within. As the echoes of retreating footsteps faded, the hallway's cold silence engulfed Kendall Reese. Standing before her was Brody Vance, his eyes darkened with fury. You think this is the end? He seethed, his voice laced with bitter defiance. Kendall met his gaze evenly, her expression unflinching. I deal in facts, Mr. Vance, not fantasies, she replied, her tone as cool as the room's understated elegance. In the nearby conference room, Kendall awaited the board's decision, scanning through emails on her phone with a calm efficiency. Brody's restless pacing outside the door only added tension to the charged atmosphere. After what felt like an eternity, Jordan Hale, the company's legal advisor, appeared, summoning them back to the deliberating chamber. As Kendall stepped into the boardroom, the stoic face of Preston Whitaker, board chair, gave away nothing. After thorough evaluation of the presented evidence, Preston began, his voice unwavering. The board has made critical determinations. First, we find it necessary to terminate Mr. Vance's employment at Vanguard Solutions, effective immediately. Brody's attempt at protest was swiftly quelled by Preston's authoritative gesture. Second, authorities have been notified of serious financial discrepancies. Mr. Vance, I advise you to consult with legal counsel without delay. A flush crept up Brody's face, his arrogance now dissolving into disbelief. You'll regret this decision, he blustered. There's context to all your claims. Preston's retort was steely. Save your account for the impending inquiry. Security will now escort you to retrieve personal effects. With Brody let out, Preston's gaze softened as he addressed Kendall. Ms. Reese, the board owes you an apology. Your termination was indeed a strategic cover-up. Kendall accepted the apology with professionalism. And lastly, Preston continued, we are eager to reinstate you with adjusted compensation to honor your invaluable contributions and the enhanced breadth of your role. Kendall was taken aback, having channeled her energy into exposing Brody rather than contemplating her return. Additionally, Morgan Ellis, head of the audit committee, interjected, we propose a new role, Chief Compliance Officer reporting directly to ensure unrestricted authority over financial investigations. This offers signified autonomy, direct board access, and a safeguard against any future top-down interference. Thank you for the offer, Kendall replied with measured consideration. I'd appreciate time to deliberate. Preston nodded. Take your time. It's clear Vanguard Solutions needs your caliber of integrity, incorruptible and thorough. 3 weeks later, Kendall re-entered Vanguard Solutions, embarking on her duties as the freshly minted Chief Compliance Officer. Kendall's inaugural mission involved a rigorous audit of all financial interactions under Brody's regime. While the extent of the financial manipulation was troubling, the situation was manageable. Legal actions were underway to recover misappropriated funds from Brody's ventures. Headlines soon captured the public's imagination, touting tales of modern malfeasance under the guise of progressivism. Opting for discretion over spectacle, Kendall remained committed to fortifying the company's financial defenses. Her expanding team grew to include professionals equally dedicated to fostering transparency and diligence. Half a year passed before Kendall learned that Brody had negotiated a plea deal, admitting to charges of embezzlement and wire fraud. His assets were surrendered, including the art gallery linked to fraudulent gains, now subject to asset forfeiture. The day this revelation unfolded, Morgan visited Kendall's office. Do you feel vindicated? She queried with a slight smile. Kendall, peering over stacks of reports, responded with a nod of truth. I never sought personal vindication. All I ever desired was for the truth to prevail. Morgan's knowing smile conveyed silent approval. The board's certainly content, she acknowledged, as the company moved towards a more secure future. As the sun filtered gently through the window blinds, casting stripes of light onto the polished office floor, Kendall Reese leaned back in her chair, savoring a rare moment of calm after a whirlwind of events. Sasha Klein, her trusted colleague, stepped into the room with a warm smile. Your new compliance measures have already thwarted 2 potential disasters, Sasha noted, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. Just sticking to the basics, Kendall responded, her tone light. Sasha chuckled, those basics others call obsolete. For the first time in weeks, Kendall allowed herself a genuine laugh. I've come to embrace that label, she mused. Apparently, concepts like thorough checks, diligence, and tracing every penny are seen as revolutionary by some. Here's to being obsolete. Sasha toasted with an imaginary glass. I prefer the term classic, Kendall corrected, imagining a vintage wine or timeless music piece, priceless and enduring. Reflecting on her journey, she understood that Brody's critical flaw lay not in his attempts to frame her or his fraudulent escapades. His downfall was rooted in disregarding the timeless value of integrity in finance. The very outdated methods he scorned had been his undoing. As Kendall worked to establish Vanguard Solutions' new compliance division, she often pondered the true meaning of vindication. Sometimes, showing the irreplaceable worth of one's principles outpaces any notion of revenge.